February the 2nd, 2022. It's Groundhog's Day, and Puxatawny Phil has made his prognostication that we'll have 6 more weeks of winter, if you haven't heard it anywhere else, just to keep everybody up to date on things. So anyhow, but getting on to more substantive issues, although the winter may be kind of substantive for the next few days. But I do want to mention one thing here in opening, is I also have taken for some time to posting my videos on Rumble as well. I haven't really been promoting it primarily because the number of followers on Rumble is relatively small for me, and but at the same time, it's always good to have a backup in case things go in the wrong way on things. So I thought I'd mention that to anybody that's a Rumble follower, that you can follow me on Rumble as well. And who knows where we go in the long run on that sort of thing, but you know, the liberal tech does have a tendency to cancel people, and you know, in fact, we're just recently running into this little situation between Spotify and Joe Rogan, which we'll have to see how that plays out. I understand that one more artist has taken their music off of Spotify. That's one apparently is called Failure. I never heard of them before, but I guess appropriately named group. Anyhow. But at any rate, we'll have to see how that pans out. That's kind of an interesting issue. Not the main thing I want to talk about today, but I thought I would start off to get those in before I forget. By the way, you know, if you like these videos, remember to subscribe, give me a like, and you can forward these to other people, and comments are appreciated. But the main thing I want to talk about today, I guess, is this gun issue that I'm sure that President Biden is going to start harping on with his trip to New York today. We've had a rash of police officer shootings recently, which is one of those statistical things that happens ever so often. And you get into this whole issue of guns and all this sort of thing. Of course, you know, and we've had previous battles over various issues over the years. One thing that they were pushing for some time, you know, they had a period, you know, where there was many years ago, a big push against small guns, and that kind of, I don't know where that went to. I think that's kind of gone away or something. Probably in those days you had poorer criminals that couldn't afford a good gun, or I don't know. At any rate, the point is that then they got into a big thing against rifles, which are rarely used in crime, once in a while. But most of the time it's not the primary weapon of the criminal, because it's hard to conceal a rifle. So it's, you know, I think we did have a case where an illegal immigrant, probably part of a drug cartel, that shot up a cop in Texas, I think. But I get it was a legal immigrant, and I get the feeling maybe that he was involved in some other things than, you know, you put two and two together there, you have a feeling he might have been involved in some of this drug smuggling activity. I'm not making an accusation, but it seems to be not too implausible, you might say. I guess we'll have to wait and see what emerges in any court trials about what this individual really was. But in general, it's mostly handguns. And of course, what they did come up with was this whole idea of a universal background check. But the fact of the matter is, we have nearly universal background checks, except for illegal gun transfers. And of course, therefore, making the remaining legal unbackground check transfers subject to transfers laws won't really do any good, because these are largely legal people also, you know. So it's the criminals, you know, I think there is a point to try to take more emphasis on actual criminal activities with firearms, but in general, I think that essentially all FFLs, you know, are required to do background checks, and most of the gun sellers are FFLs. There are person-to-person transfers in certain states that don't have strict laws, and I don't think that really leads to a lot of criminal activity either. These are, you know, done at different places, like maybe you know, gun ranges and stuff like that. People that know each other and so forth. And there are a few other exceptions, and you know, there are always gaps in the system, but that's not the primary source of criminal firearms. You have on the one hand burglaries and thefts, I would say. I think there's also an instance in which things are really stolen from family members or friends and stuff like that too. I think, you know, a lot of the school issues tend to, such as the one up in Michigan was a case where the gun was sort of provided because the kid could go to the range or something, but the guy was a nut, obviously, and took it and shot up a school, and now he's on trial for murder, and the parents are on trial for manslaughter, and we'll see how that one turns out. But it illustrates those kinds of issues. But the main issue that you have, like in cities like New York, is just lax prosecutions. That's where it really goes, is that the gun laws haven't changed significantly in the last decade or so, about the same as they were then. And why do we have this increase of gun crime in New York? Well, because they got rid of this anti-crime unit they had that was basically, engaged in a so-called stop and frisk policy, which made it kind of difficult to run around illegally carrying a gun in New York, and add to the fact that they had, at that time they were actually prosecuting people, and they actually had cash bail and things like that, which would take them off the street. Well, they ended cash bail, and now the people go out and commit a crime, and then they're back on the street within the same day committing another crime, and so forth. Unless the thing gets to some high level like a murder, they really don't lock them up and keep them in the jail. And that's the real problem, right? Then that's it. It's nothing more than that. And so, but we're going to, the typical Democrat approach is going to be, again, to come after the law-abiding people, not the criminals. Because I think they ultimately see the criminals as yet another group of people they can recruit as voters if they can give them the right to vote. That's why this whole thing about restoring the rights of felons to vote is a big thing right now, I think. And, that's that. In fact, that was in that so-called voting rights bill that got filibustered recently in the Senate. They were going. So, there's a lot of motivations along those lines, I think, on the part of our Democrats there. But at any rate, we'll have to see what occurs. Fortunately, the filibuster was preserved, and I understand that Joe Manchin went back to Virginia to a warm reception for standing his ground on that, which is very good, which probably will keep him on board here. And it looks like Build Back Better, he says, is dead, although they're thinking of resurrecting pieces of it. So we'll see where that goes and which pieces they resurrect. Well, and so that's basically the issue I have on the gun issue here. I think we ought to continue to support Second Amendment rights, and I think the key issue is to get rid of these Soros-backed prosecutors. I remember my previous video, focus on Soros. I think that anybody associated in taking money from a Soros organization should be voted against, period. I mean, we need we know that they're going to have an ulterior motive, because they don't get the money unless they make a deal to support Soros policies, and Soros policies are causing this crime wave, let's be blunt. And so that's the fact on that one. So anyway, I decided to kind of hit those issues today. Otherwise, I think I would mention we're still have this ongoing situation with Ukraine and Russia. And one of the craziest ideas I've kind of heard here lately that seems to be gaining momentum in Congress is to put sanctions on Russia if they don't attack. And I'm kind of like, well, if you put either the sanctions would seem to me to be likely to be too weak to really change policy, perhaps, or if they're strong enough to really change policy, and let's say there are such sanctions, which is still an arguable case, but let's say there are, that very well might provoke them to attack. After all, U.S. sanctions against Japan provoked Pearl Harbor. It's a fact. And I mean, we can argue historically maybe it was a good thing, because it also led to the defeat of Imperial Japan and Nazi Germany. But there's no doubt that they wouldn't have bombed Pearl Harbor probably if we had to put on those sanctions. So anyhow, we have to be very careful about those kind of things. And so anyhow, thought I'd mention that comment. So if you like, also my links to my social media accounts are below in the description. And until next time.